Hello, everyone. This is Anna Pacheco, SantaFe101.com. My guest today is Earl Greer, and he's with Plaza Realty, and he's a realtor in Catron County, and he's going to tell us all about Catron County real estate. Mr. Greer, do I have your permission to record this interview?
Yes, you do.
Well, thank you so much. So we were just saying before I hit the record button, that Catron County is actually larger than some of the states in the U.S. Tell me about that.
Larger than one state. There's more land mass there. It's probably, well, it's the largest county in New Mexico, and I'm thinking it's the least populous county in New Mexico as well. There's more cows in Catron County than there are people.
So, but would the state be Rhode Island? Is that the smallest state?
Yeah.
Okay, so how large landmass wise? I mean, how many square miles or something is it?
I've got it here. Hang on just a second.
Okay.
Interesting that you asked that question. Let's see, Catron County. Let me pull it up. I didn't know that question was going to be asked, or I've already had it. My apologies.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I was just thinking about, there are more cows than people in Catron County. It's probably a very, very peaceful community then.
It really is. And there is they do not enforce it, but at one time they had a rule, a law, a local ordinance that you had to carry a firearm or you were breaking the local ordinance.
Really?
Yes. Population, 3,587 people, land area, 6,898 square miles.
So that's the biggest county in New Mexico. Of our 33 counties, I did not know that. Catron is our largest county. And
total federal lands in Catron County is 2,773,746 acres. State land, 512,876 acres. Indian land, 10,966 acres. Deeded land, 1,135,150 acres. And there is just over 2,000 acres of irrigated land in the county.
And what does deeded land mean? What does that mean?
Simple land. That's land owned by private individuals, not by the government in any way.
Okay, okay.
It could be a corporation, could be an LLC, it could be an individual.
So I take it then that most of Catron County is rural.
Oh, very much so. Even the county seat of Reserve. There's four predominant areas in Catron County. There's Reserve, which is the county seat. There's Comado, which is in the northwest quadrant. There's Daddle, which is in the northeast quadrant. And there's Glenwood, which is extreme south. Glenwood is between Reserve and Silver City. So you start getting down closer to Grant County when you get down into that area.
And but you were saying
you have little places as well.
You live in Elephant Butte?
I do, Elephant Butte, New Mexico.
And that's part of Sierra County, or is it also part of Catron? It's just Sierra County?
It's in Sierra County. Catron County is a neighboring county of ours to the west.
And how far are you from Catron County then, where you are?
Driving 30 minutes, 45 minutes tops. And then I'm on the western or the eastern boundary of Catron County. I was raised on a ranch that was partially in Catron County.
So you've lived, you're from the area then?
Oh, yes. Yes. I go back 5 generations here on my mother's side, back to a gentleman named Ventura Trujillo. And he was a good friend of Cochise.
Ah.
And he named a little town in Sierra County. He named a little town, if you ever see it on the maps, called Cheese. He named it after Cochise. He was good friends with Cochise.
So from your experience, you were saying this is a very busy time. You've been extremely busy the last half year or so. So tell me a little bit about what it's like to sell real estate in Catron County, some of the trends, what you're seeing, and what advice you could give to people that might be watching this interview who maybe didn't even consider Catron County, but maybe they will now.
If you want to get away from people, if you want to get out of the hubbub of the city, if you enjoy stargazing, if you enjoy not having any light pollution, if you enjoy not having noise pollution, if you enjoy not having pollution, period, Catron County is where you want to go to. It's inundated with ponderosa pine, with cedar, juniper trees. There is some rolling hill country, grandma grass country, as well as flat areas, gentle rolling areas, high mesa plateaus, high mountain areas as well. You've got elk and deer and mountain lion and bear and turkey, antelope. There's some areas on the north, extreme north end of the county where they've subdivided 40-acre parcels, 200-acre ranchettes. And I've got good friends that live in that area, and they just absolutely love it. They travel there from where they live, whether it's in Albuquerque, or some live in the Truth or Consequences Elephant Butte area. And they go out there and spend their weekends and enjoy. As you get farther south, you get far more remote. In fact, you're closer to areas in Arizona than you are to areas in New Mexico when you get there. There's a little community called Luna, and that was founded by members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints way back in the 1800s. That's probably one of the westernmost communities in Catron County. It's almost at the border with Arizona.
Is it still a populated area?
It is. There's just a few old families that live there. Old, OLE, not old as in age, although some of them may be, but certainly old in tenure as far as the family that has been there. So if you go to Catron County, number one, to drive from one end to the other will take you anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. That's driving from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. So that's how big the county is. You'll see far more cows than you will people. And you want to be remote when you're in Catron County. You want to be out away from city and from people, quite frankly.
So what do you, in terms of being a realtor, what are you selling ranchettes, or are there any developments where people can just live like in a normal housing development where it's, on a block where there's neighbors and things?
The closest one that you would get to doing something like that would be in Reserve, Daddle, or Comado. Maybe Glenwood a little bit, but not quite as much. Most of them are not what you just termed as the normal subdivision. It's more of the rural subdivisions where you're getting 10 acres or more. So your closest neighbor, you're going to either call them or you're going to drive over to them. You're not going to, well, you could walk, but you're going to have a good exercise to get there.
And these 10-acre lots that you're selling, do they already have like a house on them or?
Not necessarily. Most people buy the 10-acre lot. It's vacant land. They build their house, they drill their well. Depending upon where you are in Catron County, you can be anywhere from 200 feet to water to 1,500 to 2,000 feet to water. They put in their own septic tank. Some areas have underground telephone, some don't. And so you rely on cell phones. Some areas don't have cell phone coverage at all. So you really are out and away from everywhere. And of course, those areas, there's no internet access as well. So yes, it can be very, very remote. It's a beautiful country, but it is remote.
So if somebody who works remotely now, they probably shouldn't choose at least some areas of Catron County, because if they can't have internet access, I mean, how are they going to work?
That is correct. They would have to be very selective on what areas of the Catron County they would want to look at. They would want to stay where at least they have maybe some cell coverage with Verizon, or some underground telephone. There are some way out areas that actually have underground phone service that does have internet access, but there are many areas that don't.
And what about satellite? Can't you do like Hughes Network or somebody? Aren't there satellite dishes you can get that would give you that access to the internet?
Yes, that you can do, whether it's Dish or DirecTV. The HughesNet is not quite as, when you get into some of those rural areas, it's not quite as efficient as DirecTV or Dish satellite would be. Some rural electric co-ops provide a satellite service. I'm not aware of one in Catron County.
So getting to pricing then, what would 10 acres of land, what would be like a median cost of just land in Catron County, 10 acres right now?
Probably a median cost would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30,000. That's
so
median.
$2,000 to $3,000 an acre.
Yeah, some areas are going to be more expensive because of what's there. If it's the tall ponderosa and the running water, you're looking at $10,000 to $20,000 per acre. If it's just out in the open prairie, then it drops a little bit. If it's in an area that's very active, obviously you've got your economics 101, the law of supply and demand, and where there's more demand, then your prices are going to be a little bit higher.
And in terms of housing or architecture, what type of home do you see, like log cabins or adobe, or what type of houses are being built out in those areas?
Yes, to all of the above. You have your Santa Fe style homes, your Northern New Mexico territorial style homes. You have your, I call them a New England style with the very sharp roofs, lots of angles on the roofs, lots of different angles throughout the house. You have some of those. You have your traditional ranch homes that are there, some with flat roofs, some with pitched roofs. Some homes have the pitched roof with the corrugated metal. Some people call it tin roofs, not necessarily the flat roofs, or excuse me, the interlocking roofs that you see many times in the more urban areas. So it's a full spectrum as far as homes are concerned. Yes, there are some adobe homes there, and those are very sought after.
And in turn, like you say, you have friends that have like 200-acre ranchettes there. What do they do out there? They just want to get away, or do they actually have livestock on the property, or what would people do out there?
Both. Some of them just want to get away, and they have 200 acres that is a shield or a buffer for them from anybody else. Some of them have horses. This particular friend of mine has, he usually runs somewhere between 3 and 5 head of horses, and he'll have a mule or two just for the kids. It's a combination of both. Some of them will have their animals out there, and others don't want any animals. They don't want any responsibilities. They just want to be out and away from everybody.
And are there working ranches out there? Are there people that have like cattle drives and that type of stuff?
Absolutely.
Really?
And historically, there is a lane that runs from Dattle to Magdalena. Magdalena is in Socorro County, where they used to gather all their cattle from eastern New Mexico, eastern Arizona, all of Catron County, the southwest area of Cibola County and McKinley County, and they would bring it down to a place at Dattle, and then there they would congregate and drive their cattle into Magdalena. At one point in time, Magdalena shipped more cattle than Dodge City, Kansas ever did. It was the largest cattle shipper by the railhead of anywhere in the western part of the United States. There's no railroad there now. All of that's been taken up. But yes, that's exactly what they used to do back in the 1800s. There's many ranches in Catron County, so anywhere from 100 head of cattle up to 3,000 head of cattle. The 3,000 head of cattle, of course, have much more land tenure. The tenure being predominantly federal lands, government-owned lands. Your Indian lands, your Native American lands are predominantly in the northeast quadrant. There's an Alamo band that's there, which is Navajo. And other than that, on the extreme south end, there's some Zuni holdings. I shouldn't say extreme south end, it's the extreme south end of Cibola, McKinley County, but it's in the north end of Catron County. There's some Zuni tribe holdings there as well.
So it's really like the West. It's like if again, somebody's watching this from San Francisco or something, this is, I mean, if you were to go to Catron County, it's like going back in time. There's cows.
It really is.
And
it
cowboys.
Really is.
And tell me
Yep.
again, what was that? There was a time in Catron County that it was a law that you had to carry a firearm?
You had to carry, you were breaking the ordinance if you did not carry a firearm with you, yes.
And just because there wasn't a lot of law and order at the time, or there were.
That was a lot of it. It's a very rural area. And so if you call for the constable, whether it's the sheriff, well, predominantly the sheriff, it takes a while for them to get there. Like I said earlier, from the northeast quadrant to the southwest quadrant, it's a good hour to an hour and a half drive. And so if you have to call law enforcement, it takes a while to get there. And so most people do look at that as self-protection.
Okay. And you're saying that you've been busier than ever these last few months. Who are you selling land to, or why are you so busy right now?
People are buying, thank goodness. I hope it continues. We've had a very active last 3 and 4 years. And there's a lot of people from California. They want to get out of California, get away from all the people. We have some people coming from New York. COVID has caused a lot of this. They're coming out wanting to get away from the urban areas and get into a more rural area. As you talk to folks, it's almost as if they're looking for self-preservation. And so we're getting a lot of that type of folks, people coming out of the Phoenix area. People move into Phoenix and they think it's wonderful in December, January, and February. But when July and August roll around, then they find out how hot it is, the sweltering heat and the level of humidity, and they start coming up into the mountains at that point.
Okay. And you were saying in terms of digging a well that you could go as deep as 2,000 feet. That's kind of, I mean, I've never, that's really deep. I mean, is that realistic? I mean, it would be a cost a fortune, I'm sure, but 2,000 feet is really deep. I mean, is that kind of a norm in your area?
It's not norm, but it is there. You have some areas where the wells are anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 feet. The wells are good wells, but yes, they're very, very deep, very costly to drill, and quite costly, quite frankly, to maintain in the event you have issues. Because if you have to pull the well for whatever reason, you've got 2,000 feet of pipe and everything to pull versus a couple of hundred feet to pull, which is a lot of the areas in northern New Mexico that they're accustomed to is a couple of hundred feet for their well.
So
So
you're
it can be
you're
expensive.
probably looking at at least $100,000 investment just in a well.
Just in the well. That is correct. And that's the well, that's the pump, that's everything to the house. Yes. It could be if you get into one of those areas where you're going to go 2,000 feet.
And so when you get these calls from people that are just, they want to get the heck out of New York, or wherever they're running from, do you kind of like talk to them and say, this is a well is going to cost you $100,000? I mean, do you try to I shouldn't say it this way, but do you try to talk some sense into them, or let them know the reality that, if you have to call the state police, it could take a couple hours, or let them know that they're really leaving civilization in a sense?
As you know, in the real estate business, it's disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. So everything is always disclosed to them. Absolutely. But that's a part of what they see as the romance of the area. They're on their own. They're preserving themselves. So they spend $100,000, but now they've got water continuously. They drill their own well, but it's their electricity. Many of them will go in and use solar so that they're off the grid. I've sold several places that are totally off the grid, totally dependent upon solar and wind, and are doing quite well with that, actually. Uh, Knowing that law enforcement is quite a ways away, they have no problem with that. They understand that. Yeah, that's why they're there. That's the romance of it to them, is getting away from people and enjoying life.
And do you have I guess you must have the contractors, the people that know how to do the solar infrastructure. They would have access to those type of people out in Catron County?
Yes, and there's two or three different entities that provide it, so they have a choice. They can choose between two or three different people. They're not relegated to just one entity, and that's a good thing.
And so then that's kind of like the out in the west kind of scenario. What about reserve, and like, is it a village? Are there like grocery stores? I mean, if somebody's looking for maybe not that drastic a change in life, but it sounds attractive to them, where should they live in Catron County where they still have a little bit of they feel like they're with people?
Well, again, there's really three places, possibly four: Reserve, which is the county seat, Comado, which is right on Highway 60, or Daddle, which is right on Highway 60. Those are the three metro areas of Catron County to say. The fourth place would be Glenwood, which is south of Reserve, on the road to Silver City. But there's a lot of traffic that goes on Highway 60 coming from Arizona or going to Arizona. And that is a beautiful drive. And so you very much are with people when you go on Highway 60 and you're in Daddle or you're in Comado, either one.
So, but these little villages or towns, they do have like a public school system, and they have this infrastructure that, again, somebody coming from California, New York, they want to get away from it all, but they do want to know that they could, go to a grocery store and that type of thing.
Absolutely. Daddle, as an example, has elementary and middle school, but then high school, they go to Comado. Reserve has their own high school, elementary, middle school, and high school. Glenwood, they can choose. Most of them go to Reserve, but some of them go down into Grant County into a little town called Cliff, New Mexico. So yes, all infrastructure is there as far as education and access to that for everybody. And you get a lot of the folks that get into this very rural area and they like to homeschool. And so you get some of that occurs out there as well.
And what would the average cost of a home be in some of these little communities?
Well, it depends on the home. If with the cost of building right now, you're looking at $120, $125 a foot to build a home. You can get some homes out there in anywhere from 75 to 150,000. That's kind of a mean average, if you will. But Obviously, if you build a big home, a large home, if you build it yourself and you put all the extras in there, you could be upwards of $180 to $200 a foot, especially because of the rural nature of it. You go out and you buy your acreage. If your well is a 300 to 500 foot well, you've got those expenses, 15 to 25,000 for that. And then the cost of building, again, depending upon what you put in your home, can be anywhere from $150 to $200 a foot. Your septic is going to run you in the neighborhood of $7,500. And then if you tie into the electric co-op, then you've got to determine how many poles you got to put in, or if you're going to do solar, then what cost of that and how many panels you're going to need to put up. So, I mean, it's quite an arduous thing to set it up, but it's also kind of neat when you're done.
But what about, like, maybe somebody decides to move out of their home, like a home that's already built? What would something like that cost?
Again, it depends exactly location, size of the home, the amenities that are associated with it. But again, it could be anywhere from 75,000 up to 3 and 4 and 500,000. It just depends on the house.
Okay. Well, we're at the end. I mean, I told you this would go really fast. We're at the end of the interview. Is there anything that you want to, before we sign off, you want to let our viewers know, or something you want to say about Catron County? Obviously, you're from the area. You must like it because you've been there. Is there anything you want to end with?
Those that like the outdoors, those that like to camp, those that like to hike, those that like to get back with nature, and really kind of get back in touch with themselves. There's not a better place than Catron County. If you like solitude, if you like, as I said earlier, the lack of light pollution or noise pollution, quite frankly, any kind of pollution, it's a great place to go. If you have to be able to go to the Roxy downtown, no, then that's not the place to go. There's a good steakhouse in Dattle, New Mexico. So if you're ever on Highway 60, stop at the Eagle Guest Ranch. The steaks are incredibly good there. Highly recommended. So, I mean, there are things there that people can enjoy, but the whole point of Catron County is you're out with nature and you're out of the big city. Whether that big city is Albuquerque or whether that big city to some people would be Socorro, New Mexico, you're out of the big city and you're back with nature at that point in time.
It sounds very peaceful. Sounds wonderful.
It is. You need to come visit it, Anna. I'll give you a personal tour.
Sounds like when this pandemic is over, it sounds like a plan. I want to thank you for your time, and I'll make sure that all your contact details are up with this video. And hopefully you're going to get some people calling you up and wanting to buy some of these 10-acre lots.
There you go. We'd love to have them there.
Okay. Listen, all the best to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna.